Avoider yframework tutorial. So in this tutorial I will show you how I converted the avoider game to use my framework. Let's see the game first. Because I have screens, I added a menu screen. That's the best score. I managed to go beyond 5000. Credits doesn't work, it's just a button. But in the future I'll have a credit screen for my games. So I made this button. That's the button for starting the game, and that's the game. It's the same game, exactly the same game. And if we get hit, game over, we click the screen, it goes back to the menu, we go back to the game, it resets the game. Let's get hit again. So you can play as many times as you want. So this is possible because my framework has screens. So yeah, let's show you the main first, the main file. So in the main, first thing we do is we include all the files we need: the framework itself, the player data and logic, the baddie data and logic, the class, the game world, functions, data, whatever, and the same for the menu world. So first, and then we initialize, declare the game world and the menu world, and then we initialize them by calling a new world and giving the world a name. And then we call a function I created. Let's say in menu you have menu init, and in game you have game init. So that's the initialization for the menu and game screen. Data is where I store all the data. It's easier in AppGameKit, well, at least for me, to save to file from an array. Basically, all y data will have is the score, the best score. That's it. That's all it will save. And then we change world to the menu world first. This is the Y-engine update that must be inside the game loop. The costume update. If the current world is game, do game update. If the current world is menu, do menu update. And that's the update for single entities. Like for every player, do update player. For every baddie, do update baddie. So let's start with the menu screen because that's the new code. So here I also declare two buttons, YBTN. That's my costume button type for start button and the credits. That's the global variable that will hold the best score, and that's menu init, which is called in main here before game init. So what it does is we initialize the button. That rec button is short for recycle button. The X of the button, in its argument you have the X, Y, the text of the button. That's the width, but we set the size here, so it doesn't matter. That's the world that the button will show. It will only show in the menu world. And the buttons also have types like entities, so that's start button and credit button in case we want to get it by get by type button, get by type. So here we change the color of start button, we call its ID, and we change its color to this RGB value, and we set its size to 200 on 150 width and height for the start button again. And then we try to load score. If ydata.json, ydata will hold the data array, this one. It's an integer array. It will be saved on a JSON file. So here we check if that file exists, because when you first run the app, the file will not exist. So we make sure so we won't get an error. And then we try to load ydata into ydata.json into ydata, the integer array. And then we set the best score to ydata at position 0. So if it's saved, I can assure you it will at least have one element, the last best score, so it will be stored at position 0. I coded it, I know. And menu update, very simple. You print the best score, best score, and the best score global variable here. And then we check if button released, if it's clicked, start btn. Then new game, it's a global variable. This tells game world to reset everything. New game equals 1. If it's 0, it means no need to reset anything. And we change world to game. So in game world we have game over, which at the start is 0. If it's 1, it like stops everything. And the new game, which is 1 at the start because you want to have a new game. So player img ID and baddie img ID, global points for the game, not the best score. And change dir modulus, it's like change direction every 500. I decided to put it on a variable. You'll see when we get to it, I decided to put it on a variable instead of hard coding it. And yeah, I have a better framework for timers too. My framework has timers, so that's how you add a timer. Let me show you. All the timers are saved on this array. And add timer, what it does, you don't have to know this, I'm just showing it to you. Add timer like creates a timer type, gives it a name. You see here it sets its end time from the current seconds of the game, like this time, like if the game ran 5 seconds, this will return 5, plus the end time, like if it's a button for 3 seconds, it will be like 5 plus, like that's 5 plus 3. And the duration is 3, and for our example, if it's done, no, it's not done, we just created it, so 0, and then we insert it to timers. So yeah, you do all this with this one line, less headache. So basically that's how you add a timer with my framework. Baddie spawn timer every 3 seconds. We'll need to, to update it, we'll need to check if it's done. I'll show you, you'll see in a moment when we get to spawn baddie. So game init, that's this one in main. After menu init we call game init, and it loads the images, player and baddie. It creates the player, declares and initialize the player. I think player is global. No, it's not global, but it doesn't matter. When you add it to the world, you can access it from a lot of places by its type. And we add a few baddies using new baddie. And in the game update, which we call here when if the current world is game, let's see, if new game is 1, you see when we set it to 1 here, when we click start game, if new game is 1, meaning true, do new game. New game, what it does is very simple. Game over equals 0, point equals 0, remove all the baddies, remove by type baddies from world game, and new game is 0. So it won't happen every tick. Like once you do new game, it's 0. It's false. Like new game will happen only when new game is 1, with the new game variable. That's not good practice, calling a variable and a function with the same name. This could cause serious problems, so don't do that. Do something like that. That's better. But yeah, I won't do it now. Let's see, and then we print the points, so the player will know how many points are there. And here we have if game over. Yeah, that's a new code. First you print game over, and then if best score is smaller than points, then best scores equals points. So basically if you beat your best score, so it will set your current score to the best score if you beat it. And then try to save best score to file. So if y data is empty, its length equals -1, then insert best score. So this will happen once when y data is empty. So insert best score, to save best score. If y data is not empty, then just get the first position in the array where we store best score and do equals best score. So if we had like 10 types of data we wanted to save, like ints, y data is an int array, remember? It is an int array. integer array. We would have to like do this line a couple of times, like for each data, like let's say HP, speed, blah blah blah, anything you want to save, and then we'll have to do the same here, or do another solution if you have more than one data you want to save, like in our case best score. And then after you do this, like you make sure that Y data has something on it. If you beat the best score, your best score, like best score is smaller than current points, and at the end you do ydata.save. That's why I love using arrays to save files. It's so easy. You don't need, well, I know how to save files with AppGameKit's IO, but too much lines. This one, it's just .save, and it saves it on the file, and when you want to call it, you do in menu world, you check if the file exists, and you do ydata load, and it loads ydata into the ydata array. It's very nice. It's a very comfortable way to do this. So anyway, if it's game over and the screen is touched, go to menu. If pointer pressed equals 1, I don't think we need equals 1. I think I copy pasted it from the examples. You don't need equals 1. Because 1 is like a true, or it's like a boolean inside an if. And I don't think you need the parentheses. I copy pasted it from the examples apparently. Then go to change world, go to menu, basically go back here to the update. It will, well, it happens behind the scene. It will like hide all the entities of game world and show all the entities of menu world. That's why I like my framework so much. You don't need to worry about those kind of stuff. You just do change world to menu and it will show you the menu screen. And if not game over equals 0, increment points and spawn baddie. Here we already did that. If we check if timer well, this one is new actually. Is timer done? Which timer? Baddie spawn timer. The timer we declared here at the top, which will happen every 3 seconds. And let's see, in spawn baddie we do if is done timer, baddie spawn timer, and we add 1 here. 1 tells it to like repeat it, like after it's done, reset the timer. So it will happen every 3 seconds, or whatever you put here. Here it's 3. We can do it every 10 seconds. Anyway, and you know this code. Spawn at the top of the screen, or the left side. That's where we spawn the baddie. I told you why. Like I don't want it to spawn in the middle of the screen, so you won't accidentally collide with it when it spawns, and it will be insta game over. So I spawn the baddie either at the top or at the left side. We covered this in previous tutorials. That's not new code, but we do the timer differently. I think it's much more comfortable than writing all the timer code by hand. And yeah, well, we've seen new game. Let's go to player. You see, that's why I like it, like the code is separated. You can look at it separately, like player is not dependent on any of these. You can put it in another project and use it. That uses my yframework. It will work fine. It's modular. Almost like OP, almost like a class. Yeah, I learned how to simulate OP from old games, source codes, like those back then, like Doom, Wolfenstein and all that, id Software and Carmack. Yeah, he had good structure with C for simulated OP. Many arrays, but, well, luckily in AppGameKit we have types. So, new player, all it does is create an entity, populate it with data using new entity. We put it at XY0, and the speed doesn't matter, it can be 0 too. And we give it the player img that we load in init here. Player img. That's its ID 1. You already know this if you've seen my previous tutorials. If you haven't, go and do that. And we set its type to player. In update player, you see if game over is 1, then exit function. Basically, if game over, don't do don't move player and don't handle collision detection. You know, like when we run the game and we hit something, now I can't move the player anymore because it gets here and exits the function. So move player, I just copy pasted the code. I give it the entity ID and get the mouse position X and Y -50, so it will be above the mouse pointer or your finger if you're on a smartphone. And hit player, if we check hit against any baddie hit against the player that we get from here in main, in the update here, if the current entity that is looped is player, send it to update player, and update player sends it to hit player. So this E is the player. So hit test between E and baddie. If it returns an entity, is E is entity. Like if T is an entity, game over equals 1. That's it, game over. This won't run anymore. Let's look at the baddie. Let's see. I could have made a game over world and a credits world. I'll do this for future games, but for now I wanted to simplify it. Maybe I'll even develop this game. So let's see, new baddie gets X and Y, and it creates the entity, gives it a random speed. See? Baddie image, the baddie type, the X and Y that we get from the constructor. And then for the direction X and Y, I put them on the Y ints array that every entity has. I just inserted it. This is the first one, this is the second one. So to get direction X, you call Y ints at position 0, direction Y is Y ints at position 1, if it's a baddie. If it's a baddie and you initialize it using new baddie, it will have these two attributes, like at position 0 and 1, dir X and dir Y. So yeah, that's the same code we use to give it a random direction, either 1 or -1. Like direction X can be 1, 0 or -1 with this code. First we'll like do random here if it's 0 or 1, and then we do 50% like from 1 to 10 if it's bigger than 5, so 50% it will be -1 for direction X and direction Y. And I don't use add. I wrote it here recycle, as we're going to remove and add a lot of these. You know, when game is over and you make a new game, it removes, you see here, it removes all the baddies. So I want to use recycle just to save a little memory. So basically add to game world, add this baddie we created. That's it. No need to handle arrays or to insert to a baddie array or handle anything. Everything is handled for my framework. So in update baddie, like in the player update, if it's game over, stop doing whatever. Don't move, don't check for bounds. So let's see, in movement, the code is much simpler here for the movement. You get the direction X and Y, the dir X and dir Y from Y ints. So basically the baddie entity, Y ints at position 0, that's direction X, that's direction Y. So we calculate how much you need to move for the X and Y by doing speed multiplied by the direction. Like if the speed is 5 and direction is -1, so you need to move by -5 pixels. We also explained that in the avoider tutorials. So yeah, basically to use this tutorial you need to watch them. And to move it, to change its X and Y, I use my engine's, my framework's function move by. You give it the entity, the baddie, that we get from here, that we get from here, and eventually from here, like if the entity is baddie, update baddie, give it the entity, and it will reach here to the move by. So move by X and move by Y, add basically, yeah, I wrote it, add X and add Y to the entity. That's it. And change direction, yeah, here I can just do e.yints at the position of 0 equals random 0 to 1. That's because this entity is not the actual baddie in the memory, it's just a copy, sadly. So to reach the actual one using its ID, I'll show you how integer set. Basically it sets a value in yints. Let me show you. Where is it? Okay. Set change is for updating. So basically you give it an entity, the position in the yints array you want to change, you see the pose, and the value you want to set. So basically it calls the current world, put it on I, current world dot the entities array, and the index of the entity in y entities in the current world. Basically it will always be the game, because this will only happen in game world. So basically game world dot the entities array at the position of this entity that you gave here, its yints array at the position you specify, set it to the value you specify. So basically arrays, as I said in previous tutorials, they hold a reference to the data you want to change. So yeah, it's not a copy, it's the actual position in the memory of the thing you want to change. In our case it's the current baddie. So basically if change mod dir, which is 500, change mod dir is 500, I told you I don't want to hard code it. So basically if you want to change it, you go here and like you do this. Now it's every 50 points. So basically modulus points 500, if it equals 0, like every 500 points, set the entities integer at position 0 to random 0 to 1, or if 50%, that it will be set to -1. Basically this thing, but you gotta use integer set to set it in its position in the memory. So you give it the entity, the position you want to change, direction x is its position 0, see, dir x is 0 and dir y is 1. So so the entities yints at position y equals -1. There's a 50% chance this will happen if random from 1 to 10 is bigger than 5. So yeah, that's what happens when every 500 points. And the bounds, yeah, that's how you do the bounds. You get the x and y of the baddie entity that we get from here, and as you guessed it, we get from here if the entity type is a baddie. Let's see. So where were we? Yeah. We can change its x, like do e.x equal or e.pos.x equals something. We need to use sx, which is set x. You don't have to understand how it's done, but I'm showing it to you anyway. Sx gets the entity, and the x you want to set the entity to. So current world, we get the current world. It's we get the actual entity in the memory from its y entities array, and the entity you gave it in its index, it's array index dot position dot x equals this x. And we also set the sprite's position, e.id, the new x, and we give it the old y that we get from the copy from here. It's the correct y, don't worry. The copy has the correct y. So yeah, so here we set, like, if x is bigger than the right side of the screen, set its x to 1. If it's smaller than the left side of the screen, set the baddies x to the right side of the screen, like make it like go from here, come out here. Let's see, like go from here, come out here. That's what this does. We did it in the last tutorial. I showed you how to do it when we programmed the baddies. It's like the old code, but instead of doing x equals something, we use sx, give it the entity and the new value, same for y. So if get screen bounds is bottom, like it's the bottom of the screen, go to the top of the screen, 0. The y-axis starts from 0 at the top. So set the entities y to 0. Yeah, I think we went over all of the code. Yeah, I think it's, for me at least, it's more comfortable to do it like that. If you still don't understand it, take a look at it again, compare it to the non-yframework tutorial about the avoider game, the avoider game without the yframework. And if you still don't understand after taking a look at the code, oh, how nice, I gave a comment. So if you still don't understand it, then contact me via the comments, via the AppGameKit forum, my contact form page, however you can contact me. And that's it for this tutorial.